Most debut, I think, works are sort of, autobiographical.
How did you manage to bring the authenticity?
A lot of it is, of course, inspired from my own life.
What was the steepest hurdle?
I was still carrying baggage about that person.
Hello, everybody. I'm your host for today. My name is Noor and Bookcast is getting you to see and talk to a lovely author. Or rather, I'm going to be talking to her and you're going to get to listen to her. Her name is Malini Banerjee, who's written one of the most interesting books I've read in a long time. I've read it 2 times already in a span of 10 days. It's based on a lot of what you all love, which is K-pop, K-drama. The inspiration comes from there. Malini, in her past life, has been a journalist, has been a publicist for sports, actually football to be precise, football teams, and she's also now an author, writing this wonderful book that can't be categorized only as a rom-com. It covers so much. It's witty, it's humorous, it's a coming-of-age story of 2 characters. Or as in literary terms, we call it a Bildungsroman, which is rare, but also very, very interesting. So let's all get together and welcome Malini. Hi, Malini. I have been really looking forward to meeting you today. I loved the book.
Thank you so much.
It was just so exciting reading something that can be categorized into multiple formats, but it's genre-free. And yet it's a rom-com.
It is. But first of all, let me greet you the right way. Annyeong. Nice to meet you, Noor.
Okay. Nice to meet you too. I'm awful with pronunciation, so if I say something wrong, please correct me.
That's all right.
I've been honestly reading it as Annyeong.
It's Annyeong.
See.
So Annyeong is the informal way, and the formal way is Annyeong. And there's an even more formal way, that's Annyeonghasimnika.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to take me some time
So
to learn.
it's like the Hindi, aap, tum, tu.
I've understood. That much I could understand, and that changes. But it's so interesting. What made you write the book the way you did? What are I understand K-dramas and K-pop have been getting more and more famous in India over the last nearly a decade.
It's like a whole zeitgeist in itself.
And I've been seeing them slowly grow. But to find a book by an Indian author which is inspired, what made you go there?
Okay, so I'll have to go back a few years. I have been writing for a while, like most of us do, right? And but unfortunately, nothing of what I wrote ever made it, into a book or something. I would always lose steam midway. I'd get bored or something. I'd find something more interesting, like boys in my 20s. Yeah, boys over books. And it's completely the opposite now. It's books over boys now. But anyway, that's another story altogether. But anyway, so 2020 was when, this struck us. And we were stuck at home for a very long time. And I was in a pretty dark place, like most of us were, right? There was a sense of helplessness, hopelessness, and K-dramas injected life into, my lifeless soul at that point. It was the silver lining, in a grey cloud. It was the light at the end of the tunnel. It was basically what would light up my world at that time.
It kept you going.
It was the only thing. And K-dramas were what inspired me. And to be very specific, it was one particular actor who, in fact, Beck Hanner, the hero of this book, is based on. That actor was the trigger. He is the one that inspired me completely. I was so much in love with him and who he was on screen and what he did to me that I actually sat and wrote 1 lakh words. The book is about 1,10,000 words. It's a little too much for a rom-com, to be very honest.
I loved it.
It's a fat book. I like fat books, especially when
Agreed.
there's, comedy and romance. But yeah, it's literally it, Nothing else could inspire me all this while. Dramas did.
But inspiration, I think, I've always maintained strikes out of nowhere.
I know, right? Exactly.
And something I found very interesting, as someone who's been doing PR for many years, and as someone like you who's also been on both sides in the past.
In the past, yes.
How much of this is fictional? How much of it is biographical?
As they say, most debut, I think, works are sort of, autobiographical. There are a lot of elements that come from our own life. So, yes, a lot of it is, of course, inspired from my own life and my own experiences, like Timira, for example, the female lead. She is, I wouldn't say she's exactly like me. I think she's crazier than I am. Or maybe I was equally crazy, when I was younger. I wouldn't know. My friends would know. But yeah, her character is sort of inspired. Her experience also. I worked at a football club. I was a publicist. And it was a fun experience in parts. It was interesting. How she gets fired. Oops, is that a spoiler? I'm sorry if that's a spoiler. But anyway, that's something, that I borrowed from my own life. It was not a very easy job, for a woman. You would, I'm sure, conquer.
That's one of the reasons I really enjoyed the book.
To be in an industry that's run by men, sports is, it's a man's world out there. And they see a woman, who knows the game better than they do, who understands the game better than they do. They're immediately threatened. You know how men are. They're a little insecure because women are smarter and women should rule the world. Yeah, so a lot of it is inspired from my life. There are more bits in the book that are inspired from my life, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to share all of that on camera. Maybe
another time.
Yes,
maybe later on. And I really want the readers to read through the book, and I want them to guess where. And even I kept on thinking as I read it, and I've read it twice now because I was like, I'm really enjoying this too much. Am I enjoying it too much? Am I missing out on something? And I was like, does this come from Malini's own experience? Did she borrow this from someone? Or did she imagine this?
The friendships, for example, Bhaskar is based on my childhood friend. He lives in Singapore now, and the friendship he shares with Timira is exactly our friendship,
And that's wonderful because also we've grown up in a world where they've said, ladki ladka dost nahi ho sakte. And I mean, the fact is that world has changed.
Yeah.
And I think for all of us to have these friendships are very seminal into who we become as we grow older.
I completely agree. And, there's so much discourse as well about, the fact that, especially these days, about how, you got to be a girl's girl. And, just because you're part of the boys group does not make you any special, etc., etc. But I remember back in the day, it was very different, because it was it looked at very nicely for a girl to be, friends with a lot of boys. Like, oh my God, I'm not going to share a desk with another boy, it's just not nice, etc., etc. But yeah, I was being friends with men from a very, very early age, I think it really made me who I am, and it had a huge telling effect on my tastes. The fact that I enjoyed sports so much, it's something I picked up from men. Or the fact that the character of Bhaskar, like we were talking about, he's inspired from my childhood friend, and he was one of the first people that accepted me for who I was when I was going through a very tough time at school, and I was ostracized by the rest of the class, and I was bullied, and he did not care a damn. And he taught me some brilliant things. He inculcated in me, this love for sports, along with my father. He's one of the men that have shaped my personality, and for that I am very thankful to him. So, yeah, when you write a book, especially when it's your first, I think you draw from all the good you have seen in people, all the good that they have done to you and they have brought into your life.
God.
So, yeah, I mean, I just hope that all the goodness of these people in my life has been reflected properly in the book. I hope I've been able to,
In my
do
personal
justice
opinion,
to it.
it has.
It's very kind of you.
And I think from everything I read about reviews, I saw people actually catch these very subtle parts of the book. One of the things I loved about the book, and I really, really enjoyed, was how you bring out cities. I've always believed that cities are living beings.
Yes, absolutely.
They thrive on the people who are there. Characters, each character makes that city. For me, Delhi holds a very special place, which may not be for you. We'll all notice different things, what matters about the city. And whether it's a description of Bombay, whether it's a description of Seoul, there's just something that makes them so alive that you can actually imagine what's happening there. You can visualize it. And that's just phenomenal. And tell me the whole process behind it.
Interesting that you bring this up because growing up, we moved around a lot. I went to 7 schools. We lived in, different parts of this country. And I think from a very early age, I started to observe and appreciate these different places for what they were and who they were. And every city, like you just mentioned, has a very distinct personality. And I think that really helped me when I wrote the book, because I could pen down my lived experience. And I've never been to Seoul. And yet I feel so strongly about the city, and I feel so deeply connected with the city is thanks to dramas again. Because I have noticed that the writing and the camera work in these dramas, they are so well done. And they are so acutely aware of the city or of the place where they're at and where these stories are set in, that it is impossible for viewers to miss any of it. It's almost an educational experience when you watch these dramas. It's never about just the character or just the story. There's so much going on in a single frame. I mean, if you want to, if you have the bandwidth for it, there's much to learn from dramas, honestly. So for this, I think, K-dramas and my own experience, they both sort of came together and helped me, write about the cities. And since you mentioned Bombay, yes, I lived in Bombay for 10 years and then Bombay broke my heart, so I ran away. That's a different story. But Bombay is very close to my heart, and I always think of Bombay as a person,
I mean, I've always thought of cities as individuals.
They really are.
And that's why when people try and compare this city to that city, I'm like, you can't compare.
Absolutely.
Just like all human beings are different.
Absolutely.
Cities are different.
Absolutely. You either warm up to one or you don't. You either vibe with one or you don't. It's about
like
the
how you make
energy.
friends.
Absolutely. You can't be friends with everyone, right? It's
You
the
can't.
ones you vibe with.
And
Exactly.
it's the same thing with cities. It's the same thing with languages.
There's no good and bad.
I completely agree with you. And I'm really glad we agree on this, because I think it really just generally helps know that, okay, I'm not the only one who thinks
We're on the
that.
same page.
I'm very happy to know that. I was this morning again thinking before meeting you, and this was a rare thing I did. It reminded me of my college days when I read an interesting book. that I would make little notes with pencils because I never wanted to damage the book permanently. I'm that kind of a person. I was making little notes saying that, it's very important to catch the parts that really stayed with me. I mean, we've already discussed how Bhaskar comes about, who you could tell me was so seminal and based on a
Absolutely.
friend you have had all your life. And that makes me very happy because I think, as I say, if a friendship's lasted 7 years, it's going to last you for the rest of your life.
I agree.
And I'm very blessed to have friends like that. So
That's what.
I understand what that means. And I think many younger readers need to know that friendships can last like that.
Absolutely.
And we need to look forward to it. I've been thinking that many writers, you were someone who was reporting facts day in and day out.
For a brief amount of time, yes.
And even when you worked as a publicist, it was about the facts.
Yes, very much
juggle,
so. Very much so.
what to put out, how much to keep within. And for me, I was just thinking that, to move to something that's entirely fictitious, creating that space. And of course, as we discussed, parts of you, what you've experienced come into it. But I want to really know, what was the steepest hurdle when you were doing that?
This will bring me to the second male lead, Rodrigo. Now, he's also based on somebody from my past. And initially, when I started writing, I was still carrying baggage about that person. And initially, I just thought of him as a villain. But if you've read the book.
Of course I have.
By the end of it, I think, you will actually love him, because I think he's a fabulous character. He turns out to be so layered and so sensitive, and he's just different, he's unusual. He probably does not say the right thing at the right time, or, he's unable to really communicate, his true feelings. And there are so many people around us, who are similar. Not everybody knows how to emote, and we often try to, camouflage our true feelings, because we are not sure, how the person in front of us is going to react to,
Of course.
our true self. And it sort of sucks that we have to hide our real feelings at times. And for me, by the end of it, I was healed by the end of this book. It took me about 8 months to finish the first draft. And Rodrigo had gone from villain to somebody absolutely lovely, so lovely that who knows, maybe if I were to do a spin-off, I think it would be about him. Because there's so much I have not been able to, talk about in this book. And there are bits and parts where I have intentionally not disclosed things about him and what he does and who he is, because maybe one day I do want to go back to him, and because, which basically brings me to the fact that often what we see is not what, not how it truly is.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that was a great hurdle, because I wasn't sure initially, how I was going to write this character. And by the end of the book, I was just so proud of it.
See, what I loved about the book, and I think that I found very interesting, and that really worked for me at least, was there's no single dimensional character. Just like we never come across a human being who's just a real human being sitting here. You and I are not single dimension. We're actually multi-dimensional. I will not even say 3D. And I love the fact that whether it was Tamira, whether it was her parents, whether it was her friends, Rodrigo's character is so intriguing.
He really is.
Because, in the beginning you think he's one kind of a guy, and as the story
You think he's a dumb joke,
Yeah, and I don't want to let out all spoilers. I would want people to read the book, so I'm really, really controlling myself from talking in depth about Rodrigo. And it's after a long time I came across a book where every character has their space. They're not side characters. They may be spoken about lesser, but the moments they're there, they're there. How tough was that?
It was actually very easy because I have, again, in my life, I have noticed that there are no side characters. We're all an ensemble cast.
Right.
And yes, in my life, I'm the main character. In your life, you are the main character. But I'm, if we're friends now, and at some point, hopefully, I will play a slightly bigger role maybe in your character, in your life. And we're supporting,
Right.
the main character. We're not there as props, or we're not there as, just a sort of sidey sort of,
Of course.
comic relief, just for comic relief, or just for gags, or just the, prop queer person or something, etc., etc. For me, everybody is important. And without the ensemble, without the value they bring into, the main character's life, the story would not happen.
I agree.
So they are basically aiding, and they are making all of this happen in Timira's life. I mean, without them, Timira would, not be Timira.
I completely agree
in
with you on
this
that.
story.
I think that's with all of us, right?
Exactly.
Our friends, our families.
Exactly.
Whether positive or negative, make us who we are.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's simply that.
Which is why for me, the ensemble was always very important, and it was not tough for me at all.
So tell me, what was the most tough for you? I've been trying to head in that direction and you've been evading that conversation.
Because honestly, it was a very easy book for me to write.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
I don't know. I mean, I wish I could say there was a struggle, and I know, such stories sound very inspiring, and people can relate to such stories, because it is only human to fail and struggle and then, overcome it all. With this book in particular, unfortunately, it was smooth. Like smooth like butter. Like
I'm a little disappointed. I was hoping there was some bit of steepness in it. But okay, I'm glad.
If okay, for what it's worth, it was tough to actually get to this phase. That was tough because, like I mentioned before, I have, wanted to write a book for a while. There have been people in my life who have encouraged me to publish in the past. Never happened. Didn't happen. So for me to overcome that mental, sort of hurdle that, am I going to be able to do this? Am I gifted enough? Do I have it in me to, finish something that I've started? Because I'm honestly the queen of leaving things undone, like, done midway or whatever. I will not finish things.
We're talking to the other queen of it. We share that kingdom together.
Is it something to do with 80s kids? I don't know.
I think so, maybe.
Yeah, maybe it's just us.
And we actually put a lot of very high expectations and very high standards for ourselves.
I blame our boomer parents for that, but if boomer parents are if they're watching this, then sorry. But
I love the boomer parents you had here. I love their picnic. I love their love. And I actually see that every day in a generation of parents who may have had arranged marriages or love marriages. It doesn't matter. It's the companionship.
Yes, of course.
And for me, it was very, very touching to see that companionship come out. Because I've seen too many people around who've lost that companion. They've lost their friend. It's not just a partner. It's not a husband or a wife, but they've lost their companion.
I agree.
They've lost their friend who they would talk to and they would bicker with. And a lot of that bickering was a way of showing love.
It's their love language,
And they are a generation that didn't have physical affection in front of other people.
Absolutely.
And all of this bickering shows that you actually know the person enough that you know exactly what to say to irk them. And while the other person knows exactly what to say to calm them down. And that's really, really something that stayed with me. I mean, seeing Tamira's parents was just so wonderful.
They're sort of inspired by mine.
Ah, wonderful. Even better. See, I told you want to trap you into you telling me more about where the inspirations come from.
It was. So when my dad read the book, he said, "Oh, the mousy dad sounds like me." I said, "Yes, it is exactly you. You know, I mean, Bengali mousy fathers, they're all the same."
I quite like them. I quite like
But
them.
they're cute. Henpecked, but cute.
You know, one of the things that I know is very central to the book, and at some point in time, I'm going to ask you to give the audience a little gist of the book,
Sure.
and I'm just trying to keep the spoilers apart. But Mira's move to Seoul is very, very central.
It is.
It is really it's the catalyst of change in her life.
Absolutely.
I think the term I'd love to use is catalyst of change. How did you manage to bring the authenticity that you did while showing the cultural change, while, you know, also showing her struggles in the city?
First of all, it might be interesting to note that if I were in her shoes, I'd have been jumping at this opportunity, right? Because I'm obsessed with everything, you know, K-dramas, K-pop, K-food, K-this, K-that, you know. I mean, at this point, I just think that, you know, I'm one of them. But no, really, I mean, the other day I went to a cafe, you know, run by a Korean expat. And I complained that they do not greet customers, you know, with the "ososeo," like how they do in dramas, you know. And he says, because, you know, it's India, nobody cares about dramas. Like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, oh, okay. So, yeah, I mean, and she doesn't want to go, you know, she doesn't want to leave what's familiar to her. She doesn't want to leave her friends, and she doesn't, and there are other reasons she doesn't want to go. I don't want to, you know, divulge those reasons because you'll have to read the book for that. But for me, it was very interesting because I was having to see the city and experience the culture and the weather and the food and the people and everything from the lens of a person who is not interested in going there. And yet the fact that it is, you know, Annyeong, which brings me to a word that's mentioned on the cover of this book. There's a bunch of words over there. So Annyeong is destiny in like a broad sense of the term. You've seen Past Lives? Yes. So Past Lives talks about Inyon. So that's to do with destiny when it comes to love.
Okay.
In the sense of, you know, romantic love. But Unmyeong is a sort of, you know, it's an umbrella sort of a destiny thing, you know, and I did sort of debate, you know, when I wrote this, whether it should be Inyon or whether it should be Unmyeong. But then I thought that, you know, for Tamira, it was more than just finding love in Seoul. It was more about finding herself and you know, just coming into her own, and that it is possible for somebody even in their late 30s or mid to late 30s, you know, to rediscover and to start from scratch. And that is literally what, you know, Unmyeong is, you know. I mean, you're destined to be there, right? So it was literally her destiny which took her there. And it was fun for me to write because I will reiterate again, I'm yet to, you know, go to Seoul. Hopefully, you know, this book will take me there.
We all hope so.
But it was fun for me to write because I watched a lot of cinema and dramas where, you know, the city was depicted with a lot of care and love, and attention was paid to you know, all the smaller details. So it was not difficult. It was just fun because for me it was like, you know, being over there and living the life that maybe I would have loved to live, you know, had I been in her shoes. I wanted to be her so badly. so badly. I still want to be her. Like, who wouldn't want to be, But yeah, so it was honestly a great experience for me to write about Seoul. It's such a wonderful city, and it's so easy to fall in love with the city despite having not seen it firsthand. And this is again thanks to those that love that city so much, the ones that live there, who have, shared with the rest of the world their love for Seoul. And for me as a writer, it was a great learning experience, because that's essentially what I want to do. I want to be able to share with others my love for certain things, and that's how this spreads. I mean, it is otherwise, what's the point of anything at all? I like something, I write about it. 5 other people read this and also, discover it, and they find themselves, falling in love with it. So yeah, that's how Seoul happened, and I found my soul in Seoul, something like that.
I love the pun. I mean, for me, I honestly saw Timira as the phoenix rising in many ways from our own ashes. And that's always been a known thing about the phoenix. It just grows stronger each time it
Absolutely.
rebirths. And she crashes, but instead of letting the ash be blown away, she, with the help of her friends,
Yes,
her family, keeps herself together. And then it's also gutsy to take the adventure to not just another city, to a completely different culture and a completely different language and a completely different country. So I really, really like the character.
I think, human beings are brave. We are brave. We just don't know it at times. And writing this was, I think, in a way, it helped me find my own courage. Because I think I was starting to lose it at the time I wrote it. And it was just a life-changing experience for me, I understand that, this is commercial fiction. This is not some life-altering, book, like not, there's no sermonizing here. But in its own way, it really helped me, it healed me.
Was it cathartic?
Of course it was, because, by the end of it, I was healed. I again had some amount of hope restored in me. My faith in love and life was, sort of back. So yes, I'm grateful to this book for a million things. But yes, I mean, Timira is gutsy, like you say, and she does not let life and let all these bad things, get to her and bog her down. And she does not, at any point compromise with her ethics and her values and her morals. She is who she is intrinsically. She does not let anything change that.
Yeah.
So she's a girl's girl.
True.
She's loyal and she's great at her work, etc. And she doesn't anywhere, fail.
That's true.
On any of those counts. So for me, I think that was also a very essential thing to, sort of weave into the story.
I mean, I think you've woven it very beautifully.
That it is possible to evolve without changing who you truly are.
I agree. And I think that was something that really stuck to me about the character. And as I mentioned earlier, also, I love the way each character has been drawn out, has their own personality. If you haven't read the book, I'm going to tell you, please, please, please order it today, read it, and you'll thank me later. We're talking about it being, it's more than a rom-com, but the base is a rom-com.
It is, yes.
So, and I love that fact about it. I love that diversity. Rom-coms are usually about two people being in love with one person and that one person wanting to choose between the other two people. Here, therefore, it's a square or a quadruple. I can't even describe the shape it is.
I know, my math is equally poor,
Good, so. I'm glad to know that we're both bad at geometry. But tell me what's happening. Like, I mean, I think the audiences, it builds a certain kind of a element of surprise.
It's if I were to describe it, in math terms, although I'm poor at it, it won't even sort of be like, a square or a quadrangle. It's like, A likes B, but B also likes someone else. So it's just a bunch of arrows that are linking all of these
Algebra?
people together. I have no idea what algebra is. Word is familiar. Yes, I think I know this dude from somewhere. I knew him at some point in life. He's an ex. Forgotten him. I do not care about exes, but X, Y's, anything, or X plus Y. Who cares? But yeah, essentially what this is, it's not about choice, really. Here the characters are not choosing a person. It talks about how we need to choose ourselves first, love ourselves first, and want what's best for us first. And that will automatically lead us to the person who we need to be with. So it is not about, whether Timira is in love with her ex or her, boss, or whether Haner is falling in love with Timira and being, disloyal to his, not ex, but to his fiancée, Rimina. We haven't spoken about Mina. Just to share some trivia, when I gave her the name and I shared it with my editor, she said, but it's a very Indian name. Why is a, Korean girl named Mina? And I said, because it's a very popular name over there, because, that's how cultures overlap and languages overlap. And I found it, I thought it was very interesting for a foreigner to have a name which means something in their language as it does in ours. But speaking of her, she is, she's doing the best she can. She's fiercely loyal to her father, to her fiancé, who is also her childhood best friend. She has always been there for him and she loves him. And unfortunately, she gets caught in the, magic or the machinations of destiny. She just gets caught in it. And I think this is something that is very central to the book, like I've mentioned earlier as well. Destiny is something I believe in. There are people who may choose to, believe in it or not. But for me, it's almost a character in itself in the book, although it's not mentioned anywhere, but you can sort of sense that, it is playing a big hand. So Meena is not the typical, witch that we expect from a second female lead. She's not the vamp. She is not the, she's not the antithesis of the heroine.
Yeah.
She's actually, the as layered and as gifted and as wonderful as Timira in her own way. They're different people. Yeah. This just happens to be Timira's story, so she's the heroine. But, if this book were to be about Meena, she would be a fantastic heroine.
See, it brings me back to the conversation we've had earlier today about the fact that every single character in the book is multidimensional, just like every human being. We tend to put people into these boxes saying good and evil. And I think for me, what worked the most was they're all human.
They are. And in fact, I remember when I sent a pitch to my agency, it was something I mentioned that, the characters are very human, they're layered, they have flaws, and they have, gifts and talents, and there are things they are good at, there are things they're not so good at, they're evolving, they're learning. They're honestly just trying to be better. They're trying to do better, which I think all of us are also doing. And if we are not, we should be doing.
I completely agree. I completely and totally agree. And what's very interesting is I know Indian audiences will love the book. I mean, I'm usually someone who reads a lot of fiction. I'm a little too critical, and I've completely fallen in love with the book. And as I told you, I've already been through it 2 times, and I probably will read it another 2-3 times. How do you think will be the reception in Korea? Do you think this book will work for that audience?
That honestly depends on who is going to read it. The reason I say that is because Korea is a country that takes a lot of pride in its own language.
Of course.
Now, the book is primarily in English. Of course, there's a smattering of, Hindi and Greek in it, but it's primarily in English. And English language readers over there would probably react to it in a certain way. And, the ones who don't read in English will have to wait for a translation. But I really hope that, the translator, if and when this happens, if they're able to retain the vibe of this book, and I think a good translator is always able to do this.
Of course.
I mean, one only has, the example of, Heart Lamp comes to my mind. It's right here. And the translation won the International Booker. So that just goes to, show how essential it is, for a translator to feel the vibe of the book and keep it sacred. If that happens, then I'm hopeful they'll enjoy it, because honestly, it's a love letter from me to them. It is. I really can't explain it in a better way, because
I love the idea that it's a love letter.
It really is.
From you to a culture.
It really is. There's so much to learn. And like I say, every human being is flawed. Every city also has its flaws.
Of course.
Every culture also has its flaws. This is not to say that Seoul, is the perfect place and everything over there is perfect. It is not. It cannot be, But it speaks to me. I mean, let me throw this question to you. Have you ever befriended a place without really,
I have.
Knowing that place very deeply?
Budapest.
There you go.
I've always thought if that's going to be a city, if I ever want to move out of
There
India,
you go.
it'll be either Budapest or Berlin.
So you have it there. I mean, you just vibe. Your vibe matches, and
I understand why you asked me that question, because I have someone who's never looked beyond Delhi NCR, because I love the city so much. I love the greenery. I just love existing in it. And then I saw Budapest, and then I saw Berlin. And my reaction was, okay, Budapest, people are like us. Berlin is a city of such diversity.
I mean, some places, just like people, they just have you at hello. I'm sorry, I mean Annyeong. They do. I mean, it's just one glance. It's like, meeting a person for the first time and you just vibe with them. You see them and you're like, you're in it.
That is what I found really lovely about the book, is to catch these little nuances of human daily interactions. And so after a long time, I read something that actually captured the very essence of the everyday. Beyond one large scale, boy meets girl, they fall in love, and then there are battles they're battling against the world. It's also about the internal battle.
Of course.
It's also about the changes you're seeing. within yourself and how this character grows through the changes.
True.
And that for me was very, very interesting.
Because when I set to write this out, I did not think of it as writing a romance or writing a rom-com. I honestly just wanted it to be a very honest depiction of a life or of a story that I was imagining and that I was drawing comfort from. You can call it fantastical to an extent, but it was also rooted in reality because I really wanted it to be real. I wanted every character to be real, because like I said, it's a love letter, You can't write a love letter if you're not honest, What are you going to write, Steal from, Wattpad and Reddit. You can't do that, or from Pinterest. You can't do that,
Of course.
You can. I'm sure there are those that do it, but then it's not you. You want to send something to your crush, you want to bare your soul over there.
You can use a lot of AI. You can just tell it what you want.
Maybe I'll have to get there one day. AIs are going to write our books, I think, in a few years' time, which is a very scary thought. But until they're able to, I think, I'll write as much as I'm able to. Maybe it's Seoul this time. Maybe it'll be something else, some other city.
See, I think you and I can talk all evening.
Endlessly, yes. Let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
Yeah.
And let's start wrapping this up because I think we're way over time and I know there's a lot more. But those are things we can catch when your next book is out. But, what I'd love to know, amongst so many other questions I have, was tomorrow, if the book was to be adapted for, let's say, a TV show or a film, who would you want to cast in it?
It's a very easy choice, to be very honest, because the book, it's dedicated to an actor. And the reason it is because without him, the book would not exist. I owe him, an ocean of gratitude. And I cannot wait for the day when I'm able to meet him and tell him in person that without you, this would not have happened. The character of Haner he looks like him. And in my imagination, that's how he is. Now, I don't know. I can only find out for myself maybe one day. But his name is Lee Soo-hyuk. He is a Hallyu superstar.
Yeah.
And in fact, I wanted... So he's done a lot of TV shows and films. And unfortunately, he's yet to be cast as a romantic main lead.
Right.
He's done a lot of, villainous roles and second leads, where ladies have gushed over him and swooned. But we've all of his fans have been waiting for him to be the central character, you know, in a meaty romance drama. I wanted this to be,
that kind of a thing.
Yes, so he is definitely who I would want, to play Haner in any sort of adaptation. I can't think of anybody else.
I get it. If you want authenticity, you definitely want some of the top names and the names you really like out of that industry here. I love the thought of it. But Mani, thank you. Thank you so much for taking out time and coming here today.
I've had the best time as well. Thank you so much, Noor, for having me. Thank you so much, Bookscape, for having me on Bookcast podcast. And wow, cast and cast. There's a lot of cast in there. But thank you very much. I had a brilliant time. And along with my book, there are 4 million more books on the Bookscape website. These are all authentic and piracy free. So please don't sit on it. order them, buy them, read them, immerse yourself in these books, and you can thank us later, and you can thank Bookscape as well.
It's been really truly delightful, and I'd love to talk some more, but unfortunately,
we'll do that off camera.
Yes, we will do that off camera. Let the world know you and I are going to have a lot more conversations. You're letting out my secret, but if you like what you've heard, if you've enjoyed our conversation, like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you very, very soon with another such podcast.